Hello, everybody. Hopefully we are live. I think we are live now. It's good to be here with you all again today for another episode. We are so excited because you could be anywhere and you've joined us for another episode of The Breakthrough. Whether you're on live or on replay, we are so excited to have you here. My name is Jessica Dugas, intuitive mentor and energy healer, and this is The Breakthrough. It's the spiritual view for your soul and mind where we dig deep on today's spiritual hot topics and inspire you with stories that change our lives. We've got an amazing show lined up today that I'm really excited about. Have a lot of excitement on this show. And we'll be talking to my friend Katerina, who is a self-love advocate and self-worth mentor. And she's going to be sharing about her experience with rediscovering her own self-worth. We've got a lot of amazing topics to talk about today, but I want to welcome all of you that I see tuning in. Hello, Dana. Hi, Angela. Hey, Jamad. You guys might remember Jamad from last season. Thank you guys so much for watching today. And please take a moment wherever you're tuning in from to love this video, love the page if you haven't done so already. Share this video out so that more people can enjoy it. And also, tell us in the comments below where you're tuning in from. We want to make sure to take some time to acknowledge you. So we had a great show last week. We talked about postpartum breakthrough. We talked a lot about pregnancy. Hey, Bruiser. We talked a lot about pregnancy and the emotions that happen during that time and what happens after the fact. And we talked a little bit about postpartum depression. So definitely go back, click the videos section on the left side of our Facebook page and check out that video if you didn't get a chance to watch it. I had a great time discussing that topic with Shoshana and Heather, two of our fabulous panelists, and it's definitely one that you want to check out. And I also want to acknowledge, so I want to start to acknowledge some of your comments that you've made on previous videos, because I think we have such an amazing audience on this show. And we had one of our favorite fans, Angela Little, tuned in last week, and she said something that I want to acknowledge because I think that this is so key. She said, personally, I need to listen to my body and emotions more quickly and not wait until I'm burning out for self-care. Some weeks are more focused than others. So thank you so much, Angela, for sharing that comment with us. And I think what you said is so important for everybody, is that we need to practice self-care on a more regular basis as part of our daily practice, instead of waiting until we're completely burnt out to try to reach out and ask for help. So thanks again for sharing that, Angela. And I would encourage you guys to keep the comments going on each show, and maybe we will share your comments on a future episode as well. But for now, I want to take a minute and welcome on our panelists today, because they are such a heart of this show, and then we'll get into our hot topics. So our first panelist that we have joining us today is our mama bear on the show. She's our trauma mama, helping us to give us that supporting hug and sometimes the kick in the rear end that we need when we're having our breakthrough moments. So please welcome Siri Ridenauer to the show today. Welcome, Siri. I'm so excited to have you on as panelists today. And it's not just the welcome episode. Like, now this is like the real deal, right? Yeah, so we're excited to have you on today. Sorry, you were muted. I unmuted you. And how was your Valentine's Day yesterday?
Well, as far as my Valentine's Day, it was great. But being an empath, I had to deal with some empathic trauma, as far as feeling other people's sadness, the ones that have lost their loved ones.
Yeah, it must be so important for you to have like really clear and strong boundaries, because dealing with people and their trauma, you know, that's, even if it's not something you're personally going through, you're picking up a lot on that. So definitely, I think you're doing so good, you know, and keeping those boundaries nice and strong so that you can keep yourself together and help more people, right?
Absolutely.
All right, so I want to welcome our second panelist today. And this is perfect timing, having Valentine's Day yesterday. She's our relationship specialist on the show. Everybody, please welcome the fabulous Lori Ann Davis to the show today. Lori's here. There she is.
Hi, there I am.
How was your day yesterday? All up in the business for the perfect holiday.
You know, it was really good. I'm blessed that I get to run a single parent program, and we had our group meeting last night. So we got to share some gifts and some love to a bunch of single parents. And so to me, that was just a perfect way. That was how I spent my Valentine's night. We're celebrating as a family tonight, because last night was about giving to single parents who really could use some extra love on Valentine's. So I'm excited to celebrate it again today with my family. Chocolate cake's already made for the kids, and we're going to have a special dinner. And so I'm just expanding it, right? Like for days.
Yeah, and you had, what, 2 nights ago, you had an awesome, like a live thing on your page for singles. Talk about that.
Yeah, I did. I did how to make it the best Valentine's Day ever for singles, and I did a Facebook Live, so it's still there. I have an online program that I'm giving a discount to this month, but I gave it was like a half an hour of lots of great tips about why being single on Valentine's Day can be a good thing. So,
I love it. I think we need more of that in our life. And I've been really excited to see how much came across my news feed yesterday, not just about relationships, but how important that self-love is, how important, like, not just if you're single, but how much your relationship improves with that self-love as well. So I was really excited to see that. Such a focus on self-care yesterday too, which is, I think, so important.
I've been posting both, right? Like I've been posting stuff about relationships and how to enhance that, and then stuff for for singles, and stuff about just self-care. So I've been posting across the board.
Yes.
All of that.
Well, I mean, you have to in your line of work too.
But I didn't do it because I had to. I mean, I do it because I think it's really important. And I think those are all really important aspects. And those are things I'm all passionate about. So yeah, what better time to share?
Absolutely. I want to say hi to some more people joining us. We had Jewel jump in. Hello. And again, Monica jumped in. Hi, Monica. Monica's joining us from India. That's exciting. Good to have you here. I know so many of you just are joining us from all over the world, and we're excited to have you here today. So without further ado, ladies, we need to jump into our hot topic for today. If you guys didn't see it before, we posted a little graphic on the page earlier of one of my favorite witches from Harry Potter. But she said, one of the best things about getting older is knowing someone is an asshole even before they speak. And so from that, I saw that meme come across my Facebook page a couple weeks ago, and I just got the giggles from it. And then I thought that after I was done giggling, does our intuition really improve with age? And that's something that I wanted to talk about today. So that's our hot topic. And I know Lori and Siri and I talked about it a little bit the other day behind the scenes on the breakthrough. And I think we had a lot of really good points come up. Is it really the intuition that it's improving, or is it life experience? Lori, what do you think?
So I think we are all born with wonderful intuition, and we have it. Do we tap into it? Can be one part. But then even when we get the messages, we get those feelings. When we're younger, sometimes I think we don't believe it. We don't have that faith in ourselves. So I don't know that the intuition's not there when we're younger, but when we're older, we're a little more solid and established, and we're like, oh yeah, like I trust myself and I trust that intuition more. So I think that's one piece of it.
I was going to say that as well, about that trust and faith in it. I had a little chat with my group members earlier in Illuminate Your Spirit, and we were talking about You know, when the messages come from your heart space, or does it come from your head space, or does it come from your higher up, your intuition? And how do you know where it's coming from? And do you trust it, and that sort of thing? And so I think that trust, I think the trust is what really improves well with age. What do you think about it, Siri?
Well, for me, it's not so much the age thing, because, you know, I refuse to get old, but it's more as I grow more spiritually, it seems like everything opens up more. My heart chakra opens up, you know, everything opens to the point where I can actually hear my intuition, rather than everything else in the world blocking it out. Being an empath, I've always had messages coming through, but learning how to deal with them. Is this mine? Does it belong to somebody else? How do I handle this? If it does belong to somebody else, you know, do I actually talk to them about it? Do I hold my tongue? And that's where my intuition has really grown, is discerning when to talk to somebody, when not to talk to somebody, and knowing whether it's mine or somebody else's signals or messages that are coming through.
And I think what we talked about in the beginning too, with boundaries there is really important too, and what you're going to allow. The one Oracle set that I use called Sea Whispers, it was actually my first set that I've been using for a couple years now. And I love it so much. The one card that is in the deck is called the Nets card, and it shows a net. And I'm always reminded about boundaries when I see that card. It's not even what the card's about, but it always reminds me about boundaries, because you can put a net in the ocean to try to keep big predators out. But the purpose of a net instead of a wall is that it can still allow that life-giving stuff through. It can still allow the little fish that need to go through, and the plankton and the bacteria in the water and all of that stuff to pass through this net, but yet it keeps out what it needs to keep out, or from side to side. And so I think that if we have that kind of net up, if you will, in our energetic being, you know, and be open to the intuition that comes through but have that boundaries. I think that boundary is so important to know kind of what we're letting through there. Bruiser was saying in the comments that it's a great topic, and he's learning it to how to tap into his intuition more this month, which is awesome. We are proud of you, Bruiser, for doing that. And I think too that so much of it with those boundaries comes the choice of whether or not we have those boundaries. I think that as I get older, my intuition has gotten stronger, but it's based on life experience that I've had, but also the choice to tap into it. It's a focus on, you know, what are these messages that are coming through for me? And do I want to improve my intuition? Do I want to make it stronger, and doing things that I need to do to improve it? So I think that some of it has to do with choice too.
So that brings up something for me as well, is that, you know, my intuition's always been good, and I've usually listened to it pretty well. But now that I'm older, I realize what a gift it is and how much it can add to my life. So now when something's going on in my life, and on a regular basis, I stop and I make time and I sit and I ask for the guidance. Where when I was younger, I don't think I did. If it came, I listened. But now I see it as such a big resource, and I seek it out on a regular basis. And I'm really honed in on, well, what do I want guidance about right now? And so I think we can hone that skill and learn to use it in a better way so that it works even better for us.
And that ties in so well with Angela's comment before too about self-care, because it's like, it's very similar to what she said. Or do we want to make tapping into our intuition a practice, or just wait until something happens and we feel like we need guidance. You know, it's when we talk about praying, it's the same thing. You know, it's when we pray, it should be part of our daily practice and not like, oh, well, I need something right now, so let me get on that real quick. So I think that making your intuition a practice and choosing it and having good discernment, those are the things that improve our intuition, not necessarily just with age, but it comes. All right, ladies. So really good hot topic. And we would love for you all to continue chiming in on our topic about intuition. And we will be happy to continue the party with you all in the comments after the show. But I need to get to introduce our guest today. We're going to try again, and she'll be our first guest of the season. She is our friend Katarina Stanska, coming to us from the UK. She is, as I mentioned, a self-love advocate and self-worth mentor. She's the owner of Positivity Parlor and a regular panelist in the beloved youth community talking about abuse and bullying. Everybody, please push the heart button for our friend Katarina today. Everybody say hello. I think she's coming. Here she comes. Yay.
Hi, Kat.
Unmute.
Unmuted. We are live.
Hello. Hello, everyone.
Hi, we're so glad to have you on.
Here.
Yes, we're so excited. Kat, tell us a little bit about how you feel about our hot topic today. Has your intuition improved as you've gotten older?
Oh, yes, that's been, I recently had a huge breakthrough or aha moment when it comes to my intuition. For the past couple of years, I've realized that I can see things before they happen in a way, not often, but in a crucial times. And it's not so much for me, but for other people. And it got to the point that I thought that my intuition became my first sense. Now, I do understand now that I'm clairvoyant, but recently, the last couple of weeks, that clairvoyance has peaked to such a level that, to be honest, I actually feel scared, at times. And I do think, should I tell someone I see something before they do? Before I kind of warn them before, something happens, or should I just keep it and then feel guilty that I haven't warned them and just give them that,
Yeah, I definitely think it can ignite a little fear in us when it comes on so quickly. It's interesting. I talk to people who have really been working with their intuition, their whole lives. And it's, I'll mention something and they're like, no, no big deal. And for me, it's been such like the last 10 years or so, such a like whoosh of information and energy. And it can be a little scary, but you're definitely, I think we're all in such good hands being connected to each other and having that support. And
Yes.
You've always been such a big support to me as well.
I do think so too.
Yes.
I really enjoy having my spiritual tribe, if I can use that word. People who get me and who don't think that I'm kind of woo-woo and don't look at me in a weird way.
Yes, absolutely. So I want to get in and talk about your story today because I think you have so much goodness to share with everybody from your life experience. So tell us a little bit about you and how what things looked like for you before you rediscovered your self-worth.
So I'm Kat. I've been living in the UK the last 13 years. I'm originally from Poland. And I'm currently a single mom. So prior to rediscovering my self-worth, if I go back to my early teens, I was always very confident. I knew what I wanted to do, who I wanted to be, and I kind of had those type of friends which really made sure that my vibration is high. So I was among high achievers. And then I decided to move to Scotland, and unfortunately things didn't go as well as planned. I found myself in an abusive marriage, and for a period of time, to be exact, for about 5 years, I was intimidated, I was humiliated. I've basically experienced all those feelings which put me down, which made me, I heard on a daily basis that I'm unworthy, that nobody is gonna want me if that marriage is gonna come ever to an end, that I basically mean nothing. And I was made to feel that that other person is my heir, and I basically need him to breathe on a daily basis. That was that was hard to accept. I must admit, from somebody for somebody who was always smiling if you just flicked your fingers, and then suddenly I was, what was really heartbreaking for me was I didn't even have the freedom to talk on the phone. Like, I had to organize a system for my parents, for them to be able to speak to them. So, for example, one ringtone meant that I'm safe. Two ringtones meant that we can talk, because otherwise, anytime I was on the phone, that's just an example. Anytime I was on the phone, my ex would just walk around me, talking and saying, controlled conversation. And that was, it didn't matter whether that was a professional conversation and I was maybe doing something, which had to be done, or whether I was talking to my friends. And that, I think that was one of those points when I really I really felt like it is really all my fault. And I kind of felt like I didn't belong. So to give you another perspective, like, I didn't belong in Poland because I decided to make other country my home. And then I didn't really belong in Scotland because I didn't really have anybody, I didn't have anybody I could trust, or I didn't believe that somebody is gonna believe me. Let's face it, a couple of years ago, before the Me Too movement started, it's, things like that or experiences like that were very, very rarely talked about. So yeah, that was my life before I rediscovered again who I am.
Yeah, I think that type of relationship is one that many of us have experienced. And it's interesting because it's not like it's anything that we had planned for our life, and when we're in it. Would you say that you had several moments like that, of where you did you realize in the moment, like when he was circling you on the phone and kind of these different things were happening, did you realize, I need to not be in this then? Or was it just a little flag? Like, how did that feel in those moments, as far as like, what were you going to do? Did you even start thinking about anything at that point, or did you just know something was off?
I knew something was off. However, I didn't really, because I think because I was in a different country, I was away from my parents. I didn't have the knowledge to where to go. I didn't know. It came out very, very much later into the relationship, into my marriage, that I was told that I could have called, and anonymously, to a police, and report what was happening. I think I was overtaken by the kind of Polish thinking, in a way. I know it might sound strange, but in Poland, the last people you would ever call, it's police, because you might end up with more trouble. So in a way, I was probably too scared to call the police, because I knew at that point, I had one of my children already, and I was too scared that they will be taken away. I thought, what if we both get into trouble? I was, so safety of my son, and making sure that he is safe was more. I think I just accepted that this is my this was my norm at the time. And I had a friend who kept coming, and she was herself a survivor of domestic abuse, and she kept telling me, I'm just telling you stories, I'm just there to tell you, that there is a way out, but I'm not gonna pressure you. I can't make you, I'm not gonna be the one to separate you from your husband. When the time is right, you will do, you will take that step. But and it turned out she's been talking to me about 3 years before I actually made that step, and I said, enough is enough, and I just and I just went like with a flip of a finger, I was gone.
So what
no.
was that for you? What was that flip of a switch that you finally went from thinking, maybe this is me, maybe this is my life, to realizing that I deserve better, I can have better, I'm willing to take that risk to get it?
I remember that day as it was yesterday. We had an argument. He wanted me to play a CD of his favorite band. And the CD, I put the CD on, and the CD basically was scratched and it didn't play right. We started arguing, and at one point he blamed my son. He started blaming me for, and using a lot of swearing and a lot of names. He told me it's my fault for giving the CD to our son to play with, which I knew I haven't done it. And we were in the bathroom, and our bathroom was very narrow. Literally, when there was a bath here, I was standing and I was faced with a cabinet which was hanging on the wall. And he tried to hit me. Now, this happened many times, so it wasn't a breaking point as such. However, what happened next when my 4-year-old, then almost 4-year-old son ran into the bathroom literally telling him, "She is my mom, leave her alone," I actually froze, and so did he. And that same evening, I knew that I either go now and make a plan, ASAP, or either I'm gonna commit a crime or he is gonna commit a crime, because I knew that once he really starts physical abuse, that will be me. That will be the end. I will not be, it will be twice as hard. And a couple of days later, I was gone. So, but that was truly a breaking point, because I think until then I didn't realize. We talk a lot, and as a early years practitioner, as a nursery teacher, I spent a lot of time looking into child's development. And of course, you probably heard as moms, you probably heard a lot of times that children do see what's happening. They might not be able to voice, what they see. And I think at that point, knowing that my son is only 3 and was almost 4 years old at the time, I think that was, that is what I needed to know. Because I thought to myself, if he was able to run to the bathroom, he must have heard us arguing. There is no, and I remember putting him to sleep, for an hour. So he must have heard, we must have argued, really, really loudly. And, so that was the point when I thought that is it, I'm out, before it escalates even more. So,
do you think being in a strange country like that and having to go out on your own with a child, do you think that's one reason why you stayed so long?
At the point when I left, we actually had 2 children. My younger son was 8 months old. And I just thought, certainly the fact that I was in a different country, I had mixed feelings, because on the one way, I thought there must be a way for me to, to be somebody else, to provide a better future, because that was moving to Scotland. I wanted a better future for myself. At the time when I was only 22 and a half when I moved out of Poland and left everything I knew and everyone I knew, to go out. And initially I never knew I will stay 13 years, in Scotland, which I'm grateful I did, but I didn't know at the time. I didn't really know how to feel. I think I was overwhelmed with all the emotions, because I knew as soon as I got into that refuge, into that room, when I was just with my boys, me and my boy, like my older son and me, we just cried. And he did mention to me, "Mom, there will be no more, no more shouting, no more screaming, we are safe now." And I think that is, but it took me about a couple of months to really realize that I'm doing okay, that without him being around me, that I am doing okay, that I can still do well with my children. Because I did have that support, through that charity. I think that played a huge part. And I think I realized that whatever I heard maybe about Scotland has actually come true. Those people are really, Scottish people are really amazing when it comes to hospitality. I didn't ever feel homesick, because people here are the same way, they are the same genuine people, they will help you as much as they can, or at least that's my experience. And if it's one thing I haven't experienced, it's like in many countries you would think people would experience maybe racism, Yes, I felt like an outsider, but then, if I had police pretty much a couple of days a week at my front door, if I look back, I'm not surprised people might not have talked to me straight away, because they did, you get police for different reasons. They might not have known why I actually have been placed there in that house, and so, yeah, I think that played a huge part. But do I regret anything? No, I've learned a lot. And yes, I'm happy that because I know even from talking to my mom and my sister, I know that I have much more support here. Even in legal terms, I've got much more support here than what it would be if I was in Poland.
So when you went to leave, I'm assuming that you left the relationship and it wasn't all happiness and rainbows immediately. Like, how long did it take from leaving the relationship to really beginning that process of rediscovering your self-worth, of loving yourself again?
That process started 2 years. Will be 2 years. 1st of March this year will be 2 years. And so I left my marriage in 2012. So it was 2017. So it's pretty much 5 years going through every single stage of healing. Although I do think I've been in the very last stage now, when I'm able to share, when I feel comfortable enough to share, to share my story, share my experience. And I realize that there is, even if nobody seems to listen, that there is always somebody who needs my story, So, but yeah, it took about 5 years before I really started taking action on, taking simple steps on loving myself more.
Tell us a little bit about what are some of those steps that you started to take that helped you to get to this stage of the healing.
First one was similar to mirror work of Louise Hay, although at the time I didn't have a clue that Louise Hay has actually done anything like this. I was taught through that charity and the work they've done with me and other ladies in a group, sort of group coaching, I would say. I used red lipstick on the biggest mirror I have, which is in my corridor, which is a great place, to be honest, because I can't miss it anytime I go into my house or I go out of my house. And I used to put affirmations. I used to look for affirmations, even things like, I'm enough, I feel okay, or I'm beautiful, simple steps. Sometimes it was just words. Now, what was important to mention is, what helped me as well is, anytime I was angry, within those first 5 years of me living, anytime I was angry or something happened which brought those emotions back from our breakup and from my marriage and any kind of abuse, I used to take the same lipstick and just write all the anger out, like simple words, or I used to write actually letters using the lipstick. So I must say I spent quite fair amount of money, on red lipstick over the years. But I did just write, even rather that was swearing or just simple words, or it was maybe full of question marks. I used to write them, and or at one stage I remember coloring the whole mirror in a red lipstick, just purely, coloring it. And I think by the time I cleaned that mirror, I was certainly much calmer. Yes, what I love about it all is I really feel I've come a long way, because now I still use the red lipstick, I still use my mirror, but now what goes on that mirror is quotes, positive quotes, to remind me of certain, or quotes which really have impacted me, in a way, for and I try to change them every week. So I have it's more to focus myself on something rather than, feeling like, what, I really need that. So that was one step. Another step was I had alarm, and every alarm I had on my phone, whether that was for 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock, or for my children's school, it was always to remind me of gratitude. So like I would, for example, put 3 things to be grateful for. So as a name of my alarm. So I knew that as soon as the alarm goes, I was reminded. And yes, it took trust me, it took more than 90 days, or the usual 21 days people say it takes to build a habit. Some habits take much longer. Yeah. That one certainly did. But
some of us are more stubborn than others. It just is.
Yes, I think so. So that was another, but the last one, which was also equally important, I went back to the time when I was in Germany as a student. And I used to be barefoot in the garden in summer. And I remember that feeling of being grounded, not really paying attention to the outside world, but being connected to, what's actually inside me. So at the really times, even when the weather was really bad, like it was raining, I would still go even for 1 or 2 minutes outside. And if I couldn't stand on the actual ground, I would stand even on the step, but just to feel under my feet something different, not the usual carpet or stairs, And I think that that increased to maybe, being on the beach, and letting the water and the waves take what I needed to let go of. But at the very start, this was basically what I could do without much effort, I would say. Because of course I had, I was still healing, and I had, by that point my son started primary school, because children here start primary school at the age of 5. So I had more responsibility for him, and my younger was of course with me and starting going to nursery, and I started college as well. So that was the time when I really had to, find the little pockets of time, and yeah. But these were the main 3, I would say, which helped me really get to where I am now.
Great pieces of wisdom for other people.
Thank you. Thank you.
Absolutely. I think there's so many different tools out there, and I loved the different ones that you shared with everybody, because I think those are they're very simple ones, and I think that's really important. Something well, actually, I'm going to wait, and I'm going to share that little thought at the end about the simple things that we do. But Kat, what do things look like for you now? How are you? I know you mentioned you still use the red lipstick on the mirror, and how are you still working on continuing this self-worth and self-love now? And what would you say to anybody who is in a situation like yours? What would you say to them? What advice would you give them?
So how my situation is now, I've completed since I left my ex, I completed 2 additional diplomas in college. So I became a nursery teacher, which is something. I have a degree in German teaching, but that's basically a smaller age. Being a nursery teacher is a different age group. And I think I did that because my son experiencing so much abuse, my older son, I really wanted to dive deeper into child development and see if there is any way I can help, other children may be affected. I'm certainly more prone to see the silent signs of abuse in children. I've opened my online shop for my merchandise. What else is, I'm writing a cookbook, which is hopefully gonna be published. So yeah, I think, but what's more important is I build healthy boundaries, I would say, between me, and there is certain things I would not allow into my energetical space. I became extremely self-aware of what I will allow, what type of responses I would allow myself, because I came to realize a couple of months ago that anytime something happens before I would, while I was in that abusive relationship, I would just take it, accept it basically as it was, and accepted it as another part of that abuse, another part of my normal life. Whereas now I know that before I react or respond, I give myself that time. I give myself that time where I just sit and I think, is it really important? Or even if somebody asks me to do something, I actually ask myself, how would helping that person make me feel? Is this going to cause me overwhelm? Is it going to cause me, that I will be burned out? Or is it going to maybe make me happy and actually let me learn something in the process? So that's certainly, a huge change. But I think the biggest change is that I really know my worth. Like, there is less and less of those times when I need to remind myself that I'm worth it, that I am enough. And I finally understand that people will be inspired by what I share. That was one of the biggest lessons I learned, to actually accept. A lot of people told me I'm inspirational, but I used to think that to be inspirational, you need to be someone. Like, you need to be some kind of celebrity. You need to have some kind of a social recognition, in the wider world. Whereas for me, I was just a normal person. I was like a little mouse hidden somewhere who is just emerging, in the world. So one piece of advice to anybody who is in my situation, I would say, if somebody gives you compliments and tells you do something right, accept it and truly believe, because people have different perspective of us. We can always think what we think about ourselves is what we think, but people will always, I came to learn that people will always have, depending on the situation we are involved in, or the experiences we have, it is, people will learn different sides of us. And another piece of advice, which I also found very valuable, is there will be times along the process where, even now, I sometimes have to let go of a certain friendship, which maybe was, or certain person, or even a certain experience, which at the time when I needed it was very beneficial, was what kept me going, and that recently happened when I have found a soul sister. I thought it's really, beneficial friendship to both of us, and suddenly it ended. And I realized that I cannot force anybody onto my journey. I needed to learn to accept that if something is finished, then that is not because of me so much, but I should learn the lessons, look at the lessons, in that, and basically accept that this experience with that person is complete. And there will be somebody else, and be open that there will be somebody else who is gonna come, not instead of that person, because of course certain friendships you'll never forget, or certain people you'll never forget. Everyone leaves a mark on your life, but accept that that you will be given something more. And the last piece of advice, which I found very profound, is that I always have the choice. If I ask for something, whether I speak to the universe or whether I, try to manifest anything, I'll always be offered the best. But whether I accept it or not, that is my, entirely my choice. So, acceptance plays acceptance plays a huge part now, knowing that I have always a choice, and it's up to me what that choice will be, whether I'll go for something or not. So
I love it, Kat. I think those 3 points are so important. And I love the story that you shared about what you've been through. Thank you so much for having the courage to come on and share about that, because I think, like I said in the beginning, so many of us have been in those toxic relationships, and we do everything that we can. I know that was true for me as well, to hang on to it because of whatever reasons, and the location we're in, or our children, or whatever reasons we think we have to hold on to them. And I'm so proud of you and all that you've accomplished in rediscovering who you are and your self-worth and your self-love, and not just keeping that to yourself either, but sharing it, I think is so important. And we thank you so much for being on today with us, and hope you'll come back in the future and share with us some more, Kat.
I'm certainly gonna be, if I'm given the opportunity, you'll certainly see me in the future, and you're very welcome. I am at the stage where, like I said, I do understand that there will be always someone who needs to hear somebody else speak of similar experience, and as much as it is scary at times, and yes, it can bring still, in a nutshell, certain emotions. I learned how to deal with those emotions, and I learned, that's how I can share them, and I am, I'm still healing and I'm still learning about myself. So, every opportunity I get to share my story, it's and it's an opportunity for me to learn again. So I'm really glad to be a guest today.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much again for being here, Kat, and we'll see you next time.
Okay. Bye-bye, everyone. Bye.
All right, we got Kat going back to enjoy some lovely drinks and refreshments in our green room as we have a discussion about our topic today. I want to take just a minute, ladies, before we jump in, and we've got some new viewers with us today. First time watching The Breakthrough. We have Joy joining us today, who also had shared that she's new to watching the show, but she's also been struggling with losing her husband. So we hold a space for you, Joy, in that struggle, and just know that many of us involved with this show have been in that position before. And also, I want to say hello to, we've got a couple other viewers out there. Stephen as well is joining us. Thank you so much. We're glad that you're here for the first time, and hope you will like the page and come back and join us each Friday. So really good talk today, ladies. Siri, I want to start with you in discussing a little bit about this, because with you working with people on trauma in their lives, I'm assuming that sometimes these relationships that we find ourselves in from time to time are a big part of that trauma for people, can be very traumatic for people. What do you have to say about what we've discussed today?
Well, I love what she had to say about rebuilding your self-worth. I mean, I went through that myself. I know what that feels like when you come out of a relationship like that and you're told over and over again that you're worthless, and the fact that she was brave enough to do it with 2 children, and mainly that is the biggest thing, is you got to be willing to open those wounds, to clean them out before, and learn how to love yourself before you can go on and love anybody else. And that's the biggest part I took away from Kat, was that she learned to love herself, and survive on her own, not running right into another relationship. That seems to be what a lot of women do, and men. I know a few men that do the same thing, that go from relationship to relationship trying to find their self-worth, when our self-worth is inside.
Right.
And you have to go in.
So important, I think, all of that. And also you pointed out too, with her doing it with children, man, that is hard. That is so hard. And I know, Lori, you had to restart your life with your children after your marriage ended, and that was something that I've been through as well. Lori, this stuff with relationships, I wanted to ask you so bad, but I decided to wait till the end. When she was talking about where she was playing such a big role, and her upbringing, and when she was talking specifically about not calling the police, because in Poland, if she would have called the police, not knowing which direction that go, do you find that in your work with relationships, does that location factor, does that how we were raised factor, do those things play a big role in why people choose to stay in such relationship?
I'll just clarify really quick. So my background for 25 years was as a therapist, and I did marriage and family therapy. So I'm kind of speaking from that perspective at this point. I'm sure that culture plays and the country can play some aspect, but women all over the world, it can be harder in some countries because maybe you don't have the support that maybe we have in the States. But she discovered she had it there too. She just didn't know she did. But that whole thing of being scared to get out of it, to move forward, is universal. And so, it really is coming from inside. And I'm not going to say that somebody might not be in a country listening where they're like, yeah, but we have no support. So I acknowledge that. So I'm speaking in generalities, obviously. It comes from within, and that fear of moving on, that feeling like there is no life outside, or how do I get to that life? That goes across countries. It goes across socioeconomic. There are women that are very wealthy that are in abusive relationships that feel like they can't get out of them. And you would think, well, you're in a wealthy, doesn't mean they have access to the money though. But they can be poor, they can be rich, they can be all kinds of different things. These things happen, and what happens is abusers are, and I just kind of want to clarify really quick, just in case anybody's watching this that knows me, I did not come out of an abusive relationship. So I did have to start over, but there was none of that involved in it. So my poor ex, I don't want anybody to think that he did anything wrong in that respect. But it's scary to start over, and you don't know how to do it, and you don't know what your life is going to be like. And anytime we're making a change psychologically, it's easier, believe it or not, even if it's lousy, right? Jessica, you know this. It's easier to stay where you are, or at least we think it is, to stay where you are than to go venture into the unknown. Yeah. And so, I hung on longer in my relationship for the same reason, even though it wasn't abusive, but it was like, oh my gosh, like I can't imagine what it's going to be like. And so for people, it's just really scary. And they think, well, maybe it'll get better. Maybe, and abusers are really good at making you believe it's your fault. And they just really are. That's the psychology behind it. They're good at making you think you're the one responsible, and you think, well, I'll just do better and it'll get better, right? So there's lots of dynamics that come into play with this that make it more difficult for people.
Yeah. I just wanted to make sure that we addressed that today because of the fact that for people that haven't been in those types of relationships before, and I know, Siri, you know about this. I think we all come from such good perspectives on this topic today, but I think a lot of times I've seen so often people saying, well, all you had to do was leave. All you had to do, like, they don't understand that there are so many dynamics, like you talked about, that it's not always as simple as, especially in our minds. Hello, I'm an overthinker. We give ourselves 8,000 reasons as to why it would be easier to stay than to walk away. And I think that definitely her topic of self-worth is a huge portion of that. When you don't have that love for yourself, when you don't consider yourself worthy of anything better than what you're experiencing right now, that's where a major issue comes in. And the thing that I really took away from this that was so huge, a huge realization, she talked about those different things that she did in order to rebuild her self-worth. She was talking about the red lipstick on the mirror. She was talking about having an alarm go off and doing some gratitude and things like that. These are simple practices that you can be doing every single day. And like even going, Angela, I know you are watching right now. Thank you for your comment last week, because it has officially played out through this entire show. But it's this, if we practice this stuff all of the time, our self-worth will continue to grow. Maybe we won't find ourselves in these kind of toxic relationships anymore. Maybe we won't find ourselves in these situations that if we just loved ourselves and if we just felt worthy of so much better than these things that we put ourselves in sometimes, that it just needs to be a practice. It doesn't, and what I wanted to say too was that It sounds, I think, sometimes too simple to be true for some people. And that's why they don't say the affirmation. That's why they think getting that red lipstick and writing on a mirror is silly. And why would I do that? It just makes more mess to clean up, because it works if you make it a practice and do it all the time. Not in the moment, not like, oh, well, now I'm in trouble, let me go pray about it now.
Can't do it once and go, it didn't work.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And I think it's simple, but it has to build over time, and it has to be a practice. And I think that that was such a huge, like she said, it took more than 90 days for her. It's 21 days to create a new habit. Not necessarily.
And what I love about it too, Jessica, is that's something that you can do. Let's say you're still in the circumstance and you didn't leave, because sometimes it's not safe to get out, and you've got to figure out a way to safely get out. I want to make sure we address that too.
Yeah.
But that's something you can be doing in your head. You might not be able to write it on the mirror with the red lipstick if you're still in the circumstance. But she said something about a choice. Nobody can control what goes on in your head. Mm-hmm. So you can be saying those affirmations all day long. Nobody can control that. That's something nobody else has to know. It takes no money. They can't take that away from you. They can't control it. So I love that no matter what circumstance you're in, that's something you can do, at least in your mind, to get you in a place where you might feel worthy to figure out how to safely get out.
Yes.
Yes, absolutely. Siri, I know that you have been in a abusive relationship before. I would love if you had if anybody's in that kind of relationship right now, what is something that you would tell them right now, where they're at right now? What is just a piece of wisdom that you can offer from your perspective?
Don't be afraid to get out. There are people that are willing to help you do so. Emotional abuse, mental abuse, that can be more damaging than physical abuse sometimes. And my advice to people like that is know your self-worth. If you don't feel like you're worthy, talk to somebody. There's people out there willing to tell you what you're worth and how much you're loved. That's what I had to go through, is I had no self-worth. And you talk about the fear, my first husband wasn't physically abusive. He was just emotionally absent. But I stuck with it for 23 years because I was absolutely afraid of losing my children. That's the only reason I stayed. And I didn't leave until my oldest was almost 18 years old. So I put myself through that suffering for 10 years. The last 10 years of our marriage, I put myself through that suffering out of fear. The physical abuse, no. When that one turned physical, it was days before I was gone on that one. But I still had to go through a planning period behind the scenes to safely get out. And so my biggest thing is don't be afraid to ask for help. Reach out to somebody, whether it's a friend, a pastor, if you even have to go to a women's shelter or something, reach out to somebody. If you're afraid of going to the police, that's fine, but find somebody. There is so many people out there that are willing to help get you out of that situation.
Absolutely. I agree with you on all of those points. And I think it is very true when we're caught up in the midst of these situations, these relationships, to feel like there is no hope and to feel like that there's no one that can help. But all you have to do is make a phone call. Literally, I promise you that there is someone out there that can at least point you in the right direction. And you can always, if you need any help finding resources or anything like that, I know many of us that have been there can, like I said, we may not have the answers, but we can point you in a direction, and you're welcome to message the show as well. And we can scoot you on a path or give you at least some inspiration. So Really good topic today, and we would love, as I said, with the hot topic, to continue to hear from you all, and know and listen to your experiences that you have had, and share with us about how this story has impacted your life today. I want to give a big thank you to Katarina Stanska for joining us today, all the way from the UK. That's the magic of the internet, and sharing her story with us. And I invite you all to check out her Facebook page, facebook.com/positivityparlor. And she has some cute mugs and lots of good stuff available there. And you can find out more about Kat there as well. I'm really excited about next week's episode, where we are going to be talking to Daleen Pinder. Episode's going to be Friday, February 22nd, same time, 12 p.m. Central, 1 p.m. Eastern. We have two panelists on next week, Tara Abrams and Crystal Cockerham. And Daleen is going to be talking to us about saying yes to your purpose. So once you've got that self-love and self-care built up, my phone goes off at the best times. Once you've got that self-love and self-care, then you can say yes to your purpose and why you're here. And we're excited to talk to Daleen about that next week. Thank you so much to Siri Ridenauer, our trauma mama, for being with us as a panelist today, and also our relationship expert, Lori Ann Davis, for joining us as panelists today. And we will see you guys next week, same time, same place. Thank you all for being here, and we'll see you next time on another episode of The Breakthrough. Bye, everybody.